yeah, when you're getting your start, like you're probably gonna see close to no sales either way. So you might as well uh, charge what you think it's worth. Yeah, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to get sales either way, so you might as well.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 68 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. I am your host, Chris, joined as always by Baby Girl, who's in my lap, Pumpkin, who's there, probably about to knock the camera over. And of course, every week I try to bring a special guest. This week's guest is Thomas Allenbaugh. How are you, Tom?
I'm fine. Working hard.
You missed the funny number as you were
I
going to
know. I know. The next guest has to be really special then.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what we can do
You can't. There's only one of those. You only have one of those episodes. Unless you do like 100 episode seasons.
You only get to experience 169.
Yeah. Or that's what you call that your season length, and then after that you're in season 2 of the show. So that's the way you want to run that, I think.
Okay. That sounds good. So anyway, Tom, how you doing today?
Bad. A lot moving. We're finally seeing some little activity with the old expo there.
Yeah, that's a good point. A reminder that GDEX is happening in 85 days. So we've got. I started working on the schedule. I got a couple of people confirmed yesterday. I'm going to try to have the first phase of the schedule done by the end of June here. We're also getting more exhibitors on, and we're trying to figure out kind of the last steps for things like our Saturday party and all that stuff. So a lot coming. You can go to thegdex.com to check that out. Also a reminder about COG, the Central Ohio Game Dev Group, the COG, COGG.com, if you want to check that out. It's, Central Ohio's in the name, but we welcome anybody. Anybody is welcome to participate. And we do actually quite a bit of digital, remote events as well. So that'll be fun. But yeah, Tom, are you ready to get started here?
Yeah. What do you got for us?
So
what's going on in the world?
First thing in the world, if I can, is
show me the most important thing going on in the world right now.
Well, I don't know if this is it, but Polygon, this is Ollie Welsh. Switch 2 sells record-breaking 3.5 million units in 4 days.
Oh, I agree. Okay.
Making it probably the best console launch in history. So Nintendo Switch 2 is off to a roaring start early on Wednesday. Nintendo announced it sold 3.5 million units of its new console in just 4 days, making it Nintendo's fastest selling console ever. In fact, this is likely the biggest console sale of all time by quite a margin. PlayStation 5 shipped 4.5 units in its first 7 weeks, PlayStation 4 2.1 in a little over 2 weeks, and Nintendo Switch sold 2.74 in its first month. I wish they would have. I don't know why they didn't keep the denominator the same on those, but whatever. We've got 7 weeks, 2 weeks, and a month. So, but
yeah.
Tom, what are you thinking? Did you buy a Switch 2?
We haven't bought one in my house yet, but it was surprising because it did seem a bit I don't know, there was a lot of grumbling and it seemed like a weird launch, but it's cool that people are, and now at this point the hype is gonna keep driving sales because people are gonna want one to play with their friends who got one, and I like my Switch. I haven't been able to touch it in a long time, but I mean the game I played the most on it was Ring Fit Adventure, and that helped me a great deal in my life. So it was a good investment, I think, and
actually, I bought Ring Fit Adventure because of you. You had suggested it to me, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but I did it for quite a bit. I was actually thinking about maybe busting it out again, but I'm at the gym already. I'm doing quite a bit, so
if you're already hitting the gym, then it doesn't have too much more to give you. Although I would almost say that ring is almost worth the price of the game. It's just it's very durable little handy exercise object.
Mm-hmm.
It's very versatile, and it's still just as strong as it's always been. It's been years and years of heavy use. I mean, I was using it basically maxed out. I had the game expecting max force on it and going max reps, and it's still as strong as it's always been. So, like, yeah, it just almost would pay the price for the game plus the ring just for the ring. You can almost get away with that, but the game
Yeah.
just makes it a lot more compelling because I still think I am at the final boss, but I was going back through and 100%ing everything. Then we got really busy with our work cycles, so I need to get back in it actually and try to finish the game
Yeah.
before whatever they make for the Switch 2 comes out. Or maybe I can play it on the Switch 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know if they're gonna make, I get up early to do my workouts because otherwise I'll never get anything done. Um, but it was nice being able to just kind of like have this device that you could do at home that, it's not the equivalent of like lifting weights or whatever, but that it did give you some resistance training and stuff. Um, but they never really did a lot of like updates to it or anything. It's kind of just been, it is what it is. You would think this would be like a really big opportunity to, maybe it just didn't sell as well as I thought it did, but particularly during COVID, it would have been a big opportunity to add expansions and new worlds or possibly new exercises.
Such a one-off thing, and it was so like very much designed like almost for the Wii
Mhm.
because way it like needs the controller to sync up with the ring and your leg, and I just it's like kind of right in between stuff, and nobody else thought of anything to use that ring for. I guess feels like you could. I'm sure somebody's used it as like a steering wheel, like for
Oh, sure,
something like
sure,
it's probably decent for that. I can't think of any games that used it for sure, but
yeah,
um, there might be
yeah.
something weird out there.
I
Somebody's
just
homebrew
I
stuff.
haven't my Switch has been sitting on my couch unplugged from my TV for years. Like I keep looking at it. And I was like, I should probably like, put this in a box or something. I was thinking about selling it because I've got the Animal Crossing special edition. I was like, maybe I could sell it, but I was like, maybe I'll play it. But I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to have time or whatever to play mini Switch games. Um, but who knows? But I just
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I wasn't really planning on buying the Switch 2. We are doing a Switch 2 giveaway for GDEX that ends June 30th. So if you get your tickets before June 30th, you'll get registered for that. But I personally was just like, well, I don't know if I am going to play much of it because I haven't played much of my Switch. And I was thinking about, well, we should probably at some point buy one for the quote unquote office so we have access to one in case we need to do any like Nintendo dev stuff. That would be useful. But then the other day, I was kind of reading about it, and for whatever reason, I know we had that big talk with Abdallah last, was that like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and he was kind of giving his take on the Switch 2, and I didn't realize for whatever reason it's not an OLED screen, and
Hmm.
I was just like, how? Because it's $450. I was like, how is it not an OLED screen? And when I heard
Because it's a
that,
QLED, right? Like,
I don't know what it is. I mean, I think it's an LCD, just standard. But I just like I'm not very
they just go
like
back to Game Boy Advance screen, and they give you the little peripheral that puts a little flashlight on top of it so you can
yeah.
play at night.
It just
Go.
magnifies it and yeah, exactly. I had one of those when I
Uh,
was a kid. Um, I just don't know if I just OLED's so good, man. I don't know if I can go back from using OLED to not using OLED. Um, and if it's
maybe that'll
so
bite them.
yeah, maybe. I just figure for me, I mean, there's other people. Obviously, it's selling pretty well here, but for me, um, I was already kind of on the fence about buying one anyway. Sorry if I keep getting distracted. I feel like Pumpkin is about 2 seconds away from
Oh.
knocking over a pile of stuff. Um, but for me, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, Mario Kart's fun. I know a lot of people really like Tears of the Kingdom. I was not that blown away with Breath of the Wild in terms of, like, I understand why people like Breath of the Wild. Excuse me. And gameplay wise, it's doing some cool stuff. But I just, it didn't. enrapture me like some of the other Zelda games did. Like I'm a very big like I guess a very big story guy. Like I want to feel like I'm really in this world and like I'm interacting with people and I'm kind of and Breath of the Wild like yeah, there's towns, but you don't really do much in them. It's mostly just like a big barren wasteland. Um and there's not really any
It's
quests that you do, really, you
it's
know?
so hard. It's so hard for a game to like make that jump from pretty like they had it because if you think about the old school Zelda games, it was kind of like open world for its time, even though it was fairly much like choose your own linear path for the most part. But they had
Yeah.
they had the opportunity to go in and craft like very compelling little storylines for all the NPCs and stuff because they were in a closed container. But you make that jump and it's like I mean, they settled into a groove. I mean, the people. I don't know if people are playing the new open world Zelda games for the story so much as like just the mechanics and the exploration. It's kind of like kid friendly Elden Ring or something like that, you know.
Sure.
But I think they like Nintendo does have a way of like balancing that out over the long term. So they kind of overreach themselves and then they go back and flesh it out and
I'm not, and that's
so
the thing. I'm not criticizing necessarily Breath of the
yeah.
Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I just think it's the games have
Yeah,
gone in a direction that like I'm not as enthused about, and I can see we got Caleb on here says that his
yeah.
that they loved it. I totally get why people would love it, and from a game design gameplay perspective, like it does some amazing things. Um, but I just didn't feel I beat the game, and I kind of like when I beat it, I was just like, okay, cool. Like I didn't really just feel like I was part of this grand thing, which is not how I felt when I played Ocarina of Time or Link to the Past or Link's Awakening or like um
Yeah,
so
I think these new games, like a big part of what they're riding on is people like kind of having a lot of love for the that setting and characters and just kind of I think it does for somebody who maybe like and like you said, if you were had some emotional attachment to the previous games, then the fact that it's not ticking for you. I think about people who never played the original games and they're kind of approaching the younger audience who never had a chance to play the original games and they're playing these new ones out of nowhere and it does feel like pretty alienating compared I don't know I guess yeah I guess you'd need to have like a parent or sibling who really loves the games to be there kind of explaining what all of this stuff is like um why like how it has a deep like tie into the lore of all the other games that have ever come but it's like that's a lot to that's sort of almost like uh it definitely like is tough in an open world kind of game like that to keep such a richness of storytelling that they were able to do in the past. I feel like Wind Waker people might think of as like where they felt like it started to suffer from that because it was like it was so spread out over the world, so it a lot of times it felt like you were kind of just going around for a while and not really doing much of consequence and there's only like 4 or 5 towns that are like hotspots of NPCs and you can spend a lot of time in one of those little island towns because there's so much to do in it and then like 90% of the map is basically like there might be a secret on this island or it might just be like a couple coins or
sure.
something for
I
your
mean, I think
trouble.
this is
uh
again. Caleb mentioned here in chat. He said Breath of the Wild feels like playing Zelda One again. I can totally see
that's
that.
fair, that's fair,
I
yeah.
can totally see that. Um,
Just dumping you out and not explaining anything. Here's a sword. Go go.
yeah.
uh,
I think it's just maybe I just wasn't in the. I say this with the From Software games a lot, where like I got to be in the right mind space to play. Like I have Elden Ring. I played it a little bit. I haven't gone back to it, and everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. Like how can you not like Elden Ring? I was just like, it's not that I don't like it. I just haven't connected to it yet. Um, and I think about I'm doing Fallout 4 right now. I'm doing streaming that as part of my campaign, so people can come in. That's also A reminder, I am running for U.S. Senate in Ohio in 2026. You can follow me at Volpe4America, the word for, not the number four, but on all the social medias. So I've got a Twitch, YouTube, all that, Blue Sky. But anyway, I remember a very similar feeling with Fallout 4 where I just wasn't connecting with it for whatever reason. I didn't quite get it. And then they released survival mode, and that just changed the entire game for me. Fallout 4 survival mode, I think, is where it's at, where you have to
Yeah.
like going and picking up all the junk is important to you. Like the settlements now are connected into the main story, and it really does give you this sense that like you're building something out from the ground up
Mm.
in the game. It's not just about going and doing quests. There's sort of larger parts to it. Um, and so sometimes just being in the right mind space or the right mode might be the way to go. And so I don't know, like even for Game Club, we did Super Mario RPG when that came out with Yua, and we did a couple episodes, and it didn't grab me, even though that's my favorite game ever. And I just
Yeah.
maybe I'm
Is it
just
the
in a different
remake or
space.
the original or?
The remake, and there was nothing wrong with the remake.
Yeah, true. It's like for like when you don't have like much else, like the game did a lot of innovative stuff. Now it feels like we're kind of just chilling in nostalgia land, but
Yeah.
not that there's anything wrong with that because there is a new generation who never played the old ones, maybe have a hard time finding a copy. I'm sure Nintendo would love that it is
Yeah.
harder to find a copy of some of that stuff.
I just think
But
it's like anything else. Like books is the same way. Sometimes movies
yeah.
where you're just not in the right place for it, and then you go back and you look at it through a different lens later on. Um, and
At my house, they've been playing the new Deltarune chapter from Toby Fox, and
Okay.
that's been really impressive to see, like the expansion of like what Undertale was as a game, and see that expand out into a multi-chapter experience where it is importing your save between chapters and the decisions you're making are having lasting consequences. You're in a truly like branching kind of maze of choices that and the difference between the super messed up like so you because you played Undertale, I'm sure, right?
I have
Like
not, so no spoilers.
okay, yeah. Well, the way that
I did for a
uh,
little bit during a game club, but I didn't get a chance to finish it.
it's interesting how it subverts and remixes Undertale, like the new game, and kind of like prevents you from doing certain things that actually conversely makes it even more messed up if you as the player try to do that stuff anyway. So it's super interesting, like, and props to that whole team for assembling such a rich universe out of basically like the most basic earthbound game mechanics you can
Mm,
think of. Like it's one of those like big payout from minimal input kind of stories that I think the indie scene is so rich with.
yeah, I
Um,
think
being able to
sometimes stuff just kind of fits together right. You know,
being
like
able to punch over
I
your weight because my roommates are obsessed like with the game.
okay,
It's funny.
maybe
I am
I
too.
should
I
go
can't believe
back
it.
and play Undertale and then maybe play this. And like I I say this, I've said this on multiple episodes. I think Chrono Trigger is one of the best games ever made. It's one of my favorite games.
Definitely.
Mechanically, like that game's not. It's doing some interesting things. Like there's some cool combo stuff and whatever. But it compared to a lot of RPGs, even RPGs of the time, it's very streamlined, and it's not doing like real complex stuff. But what it sort of streamlines mechanically, it makes up for with like its characters and how animations are a big thing. That how expressive the animations are for like a sprite based game, and it just there's just so much charm to it, you know, and things like that. Uh, and so you don't need always the most complex thing or like the you certainly don't need the fanciest graphics, right, to do really
I just
interesting
got that
things.
got the heart in the storytelling or whatever aspect of the game the like usually it's like whatever the lead creator is super good at. So like in the case of Undertale, there's basically a musician primarily, so that a lot of the game's emotional impact is coming through the music and the sound effects, and that makes sense. Whereas like a Chrono Trigger, I think the thing that draws people into that game is the emotional impact of like, oh yeah, this like time travel storyline where you're having an impact on the world and you can and just I think gamers appreciate that game because you can just instantly go confront the final boss if you want, and that like what other like RPGs are letting you do that even today, like let alone back then. Within the constraints of the game, you can make a lot of really crazy choices and that have unexpected storyline consequences, like leaving a robot back in the past to protect the swamp or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers for Chrono Trigger. You got play that game already. It's been you've had plenty of time to play Chrono Trigger out there.
Yeah.
Get
There's
in and
always
play
the
it.
rumor that they're going to do a Chrono Trigger remake.
'Cause
I'm hesitant about it,
I
you know.
actually named the robot Shrek. I didn't know. I was doing it. Was my first time playing through, so I just named the robot Shrek for fun. I'm like, oh, I left Shrek in the swamp. That's crazy. It is such a good
Yeah.
moment.
Did you beat
With
it?
Fiona, with Fiona, I left Shrek in the swamp with Fiona. Yeah, I beat Chrono Trigger. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, it's a wonderful game. I highly suggest people play it.
Yeah, it
I think
super
the
is.
Super
I haven't
Nintendo
played Chrono
version is
Cross
very good.
though. I've heard Chrono Cross is pretty good too.
I
But I haven't
That was
played
another
that.
one I wasn't really big on. I know some people in our community really love Chrono Cross. I think Chrono Cross actually suffers. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but you know, if one of the big things with Chrono Trigger is that you have this cast of characters that is like just so animated and interesting and how they all blend together. Chrono Cross just has way too many characters. There's like
Yeah.
20 or something. It's just huge. It's way too many. Um, but anyway,
Well, they got to
okay.
kill
So
them off then, right? That's what that's. You don't
I
have too many
guess,
characters in your game unless you're ready to just start whacking them, right? Like
I guess. All
it's
right.
the
So
Fire
I
Emblem
got,
method, I
I have
think.
two interesting things. This is a procedure, not a procedural one. This is more like a kind of logistical financial one. I just want to kind of get your thought on.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I think you will really enjoy the conversation. So here we go. This is on, was it GameSpot? Eddie Makuch, dev who launched game into Games Pass warns against launching games into Games Pass. Developer Raccoon Logic worked with Microsoft to bring Revenge of the Savage Planet to Xbox Game Pass as a day one launch title. But studio head Alex Hutchinson said new games launching into Games Pass can devalue them and hurt the industry overall. They said they saw the most traffic so far has been from Games Pass. While full game sales have been good, the game is also available on PS4 and PS5. So, as for bringing the game to Game Pass, blah, 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 was part of Raccoon's balancing effort to try to reach as many people as possible and making money. Okay, that makes sense. The financial terms of Game Pass deals are not made public, but it's understood that Microsoft pays developers to bring their games to Games Pass at launch as part of Xbox's company's ambition to scale the service. Hutchinson said the whole industry should agree to only allow games on subscription services a year after release. The current structure will prove very damaging to anyone who is not owned by a publisher soon if it continues, he says. Everyone except Nintendo is also in a race to value content at zero, which will end in tears. Thoughts on that?
Huge.
Subscription-based systems for games.
Let's just casually all agree to, just not do it for a year, no matter how much a studio might really benefit from short-term financials of getting something for getting their game
Sure.
out.
You
It's
Good.
I was say it's
Or I can jump into it if you want.
see if people react to that call to action. I mean,
So this reminds me a lot of Hatchet. Remember we released
yeah,
Hatchet and we went back and forth on the pricing models and the structures and all that. Like for a long time, we were like, should it be free to play, in-app purchases, whatever. We ended up creating the version which was free to play with the ability to turn off ads and the ability to buy an expansion, which would also turn off ads and give you access to the more challenging content. When we went free, when it was free to play, we got a ton of downloads, but we made almost no money. When we switched to a 299 price point, we saw our number of downloads just totally die,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But we made way more money doing it that way.
right, right.
And so
Yeah,
I think there is a case to be said that you are, when you're just throwing stuff out for free, you are devaluing your product. And yeah, you may get downloads. So if your goal is just to like have number of downloads, okay, like if you're a platform or something like that, a community app, like yeah, you want tons of downloads and you want people in the system. But if you're selling a product, the number of sales that you get, this sounds very weird the way I'm going to say it, but the number of sales you get is sort of irrelevant next to the amount of revenue you pull in. So if you can make more revenue with less sales, then there might be a business case to do that. And I've over sort of time, the App Store has changed a lot due to Nintendo. We mentioned Mario Run. I think that was like a $9.99 price point when that came out, and everyone was like a $10 mobile game. That's insane. And now you can get like I think Civilization's like $20. Minecraft's on there for $14 or whatever it is.
it, and it's not insane if the game is like just a game, like Hatchet is. It's just a game. That's why it's been so hard because the mobile market is not really favoring games. They're favoring like engagement traps and like just whatever ad farm that you can set up to like force people to want to either pay to not have ads or be willing to sit through a
Yeah.
whole bunch of ads in order to play the game. So
Well,
it's not really meant for just a game that's for fun for you to just
yeah.
open up and play for fun, which is sad.
Caleb mentioned in the chat too that a lot of them are using like like gambling style Skinner box techniques to try to get people in the system and constantly buying little add-ons or currencies or whatever. And that's not really what Hatchet was about. Hatchet was an actual game that you played that had levels and like a little narrative and a couple surprises, and
Like little constrained gameplay. We got like little Easter eggs and combine the mechanics in interesting ways. And
yeah, I think, I mean, obviously we made the game, so we're a little biased, but I think Hatchet's actually pretty fucking rad. And I still would love to go back and do a updated version of it.
yeah, at the very least, I'd love to clean out a lot of like some old junky code that was specifically related to dealing with the fact that we had a history of different pricing points. So like if somebody paid for the game, then we wanted the in-app purchases to be included. But if somebody downloaded the game for free, then we were like, well, now we want them to, so we had this like split in just how the game worked because we had a history of multiple pricing points. So it's really good for companies to just pick one and just focus on it as like for better or worse, it's going to be better than trying to change it. And you should have like the goals of your game in regards to that should be aligned with like your company values and stuff. So
Yeah,
like,
totally.
are you making a game that's just a fun game to pick up and play? Or are you making a Skinner box?
Yeah,
if you're making a Skinner box, just be honest with yourself about it. But
I tell the studios that I work with all the time, and like at this point, I've worked with over 100 studios, helping them get up and running and creating games. I was like, sell your product for what you think it is worth. Like, you determine what you think the value of the product is. Now, the market it'll tell you if the market's willing to pay for it or not at that level. But I think that there's this consistent worry, particularly in the indie game space, that they're going to charge too much. Nobody's going to buy it. And it's like before they even leave the gate, they're kind of undercutting themselves, And I was like, just put it out. I know there's a lot of people who are like, your first 30 days are the most important and yada, yada. And like, I get all that. But you can always put your game on sale. You can always lower the price in the future if you want to. So I think figure out, do your competitive analysis, look at what the market is for those types of games and be aware of that. But if you think a game is worth $20, as an indie mobile game, like charge $20. And you may find that your sales might be lower. You might be only selling a fraction of what you would if it was a free to play, but you'll actually be making more money. And one of the things that I learned as a business owner and a creator and all that is that Tom, I'm sure you can actually, Caleb probably can do this too. Is like you'll often find that the people that are willing to pay you the least are also going to be the biggest pains in the ass. So when you're thinking about it from like a client perspective, like, okay, I'm charging them the least amount of money. I have to deal with them the most. I have to answer more phone calls, answer more
Right.
emails. They're constantly asking for this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Whereas the people that see the value and like it, they will pay it. And like, I won't say they'll be happy, they'll pay it and be happy, but they'll usually pay it. And like any thoughts or criticisms or whatever they have tend to be more constructive, right? So you want to make sure
Yeah.
you're not putting yourself in a position where you're constantly spending so much time and effort to appease people who aren't buying your product in the first place.
Right. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, you should just charge money, and if people are saying, well, like, because I think one reason, I think one thing that people might be afraid of is they're like, oh, well, if I charge too much for it, then people are just gonna pirate my game, and I'd be like, well, I mean, people may not believe this, but I mean, a good chunk of people who pirate a game are just trying to see if it's worth paying for without like knocking your door and asking for a free copy or whatever. So like at some point you just gotta kind of just value it what you, yeah, like you said, value it what you think it's worth. It's always easier to bring that down, that price down, or like adjust that price after it's set, than it is to change from a free model later. It's way easier to just stay within the same model you're using and just adjust the numbers than it is to switch what model you're using.
Yeah.
And yeah, like sales, and give away
Yeah.
some free keys if you want. Like if you are trying to generate word of mouth, like find some streamers and give them some free copies of your game that cost $25 or whatever. Like if they like it well enough and their viewers think it looks cool, like, and they can tell it's like an honest studio that's just doing, like, pursuing their passions, and it's not just like going into a weird grift casino skitterbox monolith, then they'll probably be willing to shell out for it. So,
Yeah.
and then,
Absolutely.
yeah, when you're getting your start, like, you're probably gonna see close to no sales either way. So you might as well uh charge what you think it's worth. Yeah, you're probably not
Yeah.
going to get sales either way, so you might as well
And the other
just put your
thing,
right foot out.
yeah, the other thing a lot of people don't realize, like there is kind of there is a mental thing where people have an internal value system that they judge things on. We're seeing that a lot right now with like the $80 games, right? And if they see that your game is like free to play or $1, there is sort of like an inherent thing where people are just like, oh, this must be like a junk game or a shovelware game or something. And they're just, they're not going to even kind of like really look at it. It could be like the most awesome game in the world. It could be Skyrim. Skyrim's $2, and they just don't realize it. Um, so that's something to keep in mind. But also remember, you're in this for the long haul, right? Hopefully, you'll be able to keep your studio going and all of that. It's totally possible that your next game, your second game, or your third game, or your fourth game might start to blow up. And then now you have an audience of people who like that game that are interested and they're going to go back to your back catalog. And so
Right.
you saw that with Team Meat with like Super Meat Boy. And then all of a sudden people started getting interested in, like you had like Binding of
Yeah.
Isaac. And then you had a bunch of the stuff on the Flash kind of world that,
Yeah.
so people started to
By
get
the
interested in their,
Edmund McMillan project box, or they bundled all the old prototype projects together and polished them up, I think.
yeah.
But I mean, that's got to be a joy for any developer to be like, hey, like, we have the budget and time to go actually polish up all of our old prototype games that had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
heart in them.
Yeah, totally. And Caleb
Cool
in
story.
chat here mentions the distribution ecosystem matters a bunch, app stores versus Steam and stuff. Yeah, they're going to have different price points. They're going to have, like, if you're putting something on Xbox and the PlayStation Store, something in the $50 to $80 price range is completely normal, right? Now, people might balk at it when they see $80 and they're like, what the hell is this? But that's 60 to 80 bucks is kind of, it's the norm. We're moving into a $70 to $80 norm. So that's important. But one of the other things I say is we had this actually. We had some pretty like I won't say heated discussions at Multivarious, but there were definitely people. I was getting a lot of pushback where I was like, we should release Hatchet on Steam, and certain members of our team were like, no, Steam. That's not like Steam doesn't play these kind of games. Like this is an app game or whatever, and blah blah. And I remember I went and I looked at the stats, the statistics
The
for
casual
Steam.
game stacks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, casual games and puzzle games are huge on Steam. Now they may not be as big as like AAA Call of Duties and whatever, your Witchers and stuff. Okay, that's fine, but there's still a very large segment. There are a lot of Steam users that are looking for fun puzzle games that they can do when they get home from work or when they put the kids to bed and they can just spend a little, 25, 30 minutes, playing a game at the end of the night as they're winding down. That is a large segment of Steam. And so removing your own biases about what you understand the system or the platform to be is really important, and dig into the details of that platform, because I think that if we had cleaned it up and released it for Steam, I think we actually would have sold well on it. And it's not too late. We can create Hatchet, the
Yeah.
dinosaur, the I don't know what we call it, the what version,
Hmm. The
the
yeah,
the
the
almost melted version. I don't know.
Extinction Edition. No
The
way.
the not quite extinct edition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like in defense of our past decisions, I think at the time, if Steam Deck had existed when we were making these decisions, it might have changed the whole calculus anyway, because then it's like,
Sure.
I mean, it practically is a mobile thing. All we would need to do is basically make sure Steam Deck support is enabled and like some of those other niceties for the Steam users so that they can just
Yeah.
jump in and play and don't have to reconfigure their
And
inputs or whatever.
the PlayStation and Xbox stores are a much different landscape now. Like those casual games, those puzzle games that were only kind of in the realm of phones, those are starting to become more popular now on PlayStation and Xbox. So consoles starting to get just the idea that gamers come in all shapes and sizes, and everybody has kind of different wants and different needs for different times. I think that's important. Now, the key is just making sure you're spending your time efficiently and appropriately, and not like spending a ton of time on a platform that's probably not going to work. Like I don't know if Hatchet would work very well on PlayStation VR, right? Like I don't think that's the place for it. But you never
Only
know.
the
We could
first person mode.
Yeah, like I mean maybe we could create like a cool top down where you could like look around and move around in VR and then like grab the robot, move it with the hands or something. I don't like maybe there's a neat thing we could do in PlayStation.
Yeah,
But
it's
it
gotta
would not be
punch the robot.
but it would not be the first place that we would go, because the user base, the install base on it is just so small, and it's not really a VR game, right? We could turn it into an interesting VR experience, I think. But if we're going to make a revision of Hatchet, then let's put it where it makes the most sense, which I think, again, would be mobile and Steam to start out with, then maybe onto consoles. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Maybe a Virtual Boy ROM hack.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we definitely need it. We definitely need to do a UI overhaul for sure. I mean,
yeah.
if we're gonna dust Hatchet off, we would change a lot. Keep in mind, we released that in what 2015, I think. It's like 10 years old
And
now, and it was the first game we ever released. So
that's
but I
right.
think it's
If
awesome.
we
I think that game's
just
awesome.
if we just dust it off in place, I might not do a UI overhaul immediately. But yeah, if we tried to bring it to Steam or something, we'd obviously be looking at like just actually there's several things we'd probably want to
Yep,
look into and like achievements and stuff. Like that's kind of a key part of the Steam experience.
sure.
Um,
All right, you ready? You ready for our last article here?
let's do it.
Okay. So this one, hold on to your butts. This is on Polygon. Patricia Hernandez. Hideo Kojima says he wants to make weirder games, but he can't.
Whoa.
Hideo Kojima, progenitor of the Metal Gear series, is one of gaming's most idiosyncratic personalities. Okay, I think we all kind of know that, right? He makes a lot of weird
Yeah.
stuff. So in this GQ article, where Kojima talks about his outlook on making games and fuel his creative drive. Becoming ill during COVID made Kojima consider his age, 62, and what he can accomplish before his time expires. He says he wants to die making something, and there's a ton he wants to do. Right now, for example, he's working on at least 2 games and 2 movies. Despite his long list of projects and existing accomplishments, Kojima says he feels rushed. He estimates that in a decade, at the best, he can dole out about 3 titles if everything goes well. But even in a micro level, he's at the point where he's feels like a single hour flies by in a way he didn't when he was younger. I feel that, man. I feel like time's just really flying. He continues, I thought I could do anything if I was independent, but the reality is that I can't. I always think of other more weird stuff to make, but if I do that and it doesn't sell well, my studio will go bankrupt. I know all the staff. I know the families of the staff. I have this burden on my shoulders. Later on, he says he's experienced making flops before Konami, which gives him further insight into on his thinking of commercial success. So, I think that ties into the crux of literally every game developer, every indie developer out there, right? Which is, we have these ideas, we want to do these cool things, but there is an economic reality that the more money we spend on something, which is your risk, right? The more you risk, if that doesn't pan out, you're in trouble. And so even Hideo Kojima, who I would argue is probably one of the few auteurs in our industry that could literally do whatever the hell he wants, even he, as crazy as he is, restricts himself in many ways.
With his own studio, yeah.
Yeah, to make sure that he can keep his studio, stable. So I thought that was an interesting article
inspiring
to bring up.
Yeah, no, I love that. I thought I was gonna go a different direction where he was like, "Well, you see, I made Death Stranding and then COVID happened, so I don't want to make anything weirder because I don't want anything weirder than COVID to happen."
Oh, no, yeah.
I remember there was I forget where, but he did reflect on that coincidence. Or like I made Death Stranding pre-COVID, and then COVID happened and turned the world into Death Stranding around me, and it was very surreal. He mentioned talking about that at one point. So yeah, Kojima's warping our reality with his crazy games every day here. I think that is very sympathetic. I totally get that, and maybe the Kojima studio. Well, hopefully they have occasional just like game jams on a crazy idea where they're just like, well, we're just gonna like spend one weekend on something, just like make a prototype. Like if he wants to like minimize the risk, I think being able to make some kind of micro project to capture the essence of your weird idea is like a relatively low cost thing that you can just have, and that kind of can be part of the design document for that project. If you did want to come back and take it further in the future, you can just have a little like, here's your idea written down, here's like a playable something that's like, like if I bet it took him a while to make PT but like,
Sure,
maybe
yeah.
something more scaled down than even that, just as like a playable something to go with your document and act as just a snapshot of the vibe. Then you can move on and do something lower risk. And then if you eventually see that you have so much runway that you can do a big risk, then you have a bunch of like options sitting there. And I'm not here to give Kojima advice for how to run his company.
Wait, that's what we're here for. Kojima,
Yeah.
we're here if you need us.
Come to GDEX to learn how to run a business. We will help you.
Hideo Kojima is one of my white whales that I would love to get out to GDEX.
Oh my goodness.
Come here.
That would be surreal. That would be, I think everybody's head would be swimming if they were in the same expo hall as Kojima.
Yeah. But I think that the larger point that I found interesting is like, because that's, to be honest, like that is my job as the guy who runs Multivarious, who runs GDEX, who runs the Sandbox incubator, who helps run the Shawnee XP accelerator. Like, my job is constantly like, there's a ton of stuff I would love to do, but we just don't have the time and money to do it. And I need to make sure that the ship doesn't sink. And so I have to spend a significant amount of my time, my week, having meetings, sending emails, having connections, navigating clients, just to make sure that we can remain solvent. It is not the most fun thing in the world. It's highly stressful, But at the end of the day, if I can keep laying the tracks in front of the train so that the train can keep moving, uh, I guess I consider that a win. And hopefully at some point, as we, begin to grow, or, we keep surviving, we do get opportunities to do some of these cool things. I mean, you and I have worked on a tremendous amount of really neat projects over the past 13,
Oh
12,
yeah,
13 years. And,
our output as a studio may be low, but we've been learning an insane amount over like since Hatchet, and like
yeah, yeah. And
we're super capable of
we've
building all
gotten to
kinds of
work
crazy.
on AAA projects before. Unfortunately, we didn't get to release that project, which I think was a shame. But like, we got to do a lot of really cool stuff in it. And we've helped others in a variety of ways. And so I think a lot of people, it's like I tell people I'm a game developer, and they're like, oh, have you worked on Fortnite or Diablo or whatever? And just by the nature of our studio, we've worked on a lot of projects, but they all tend to be a lot, I'd say, smaller projects, but they're also kind of more distributed all over. We've done things in healthcare, things in education, marketing and advertising, all that kind of stuff. And then every so often, because of the work that we do loop back into in that we have a specific. It's like Liam Neeson. We have a specific set of skills, that we know how to design complicated but engaging products. We know how to use Unity and Unreal. We know a lot of like web platforms, AWS, all that kind of stuff. I think we're pretty good at branding and creating interesting characters and designs and stuff like that, as evidenced through GDEX and the other stuff we're working on. And we've gotten all that experience and all those skills because we've gotten a bunch of weird projects over the years, and we just keep chugging along. I lay the tracks. I guess I don't know. You conduct the train. You run the train. The rest of
If
it,
we
we're shoveling coal as fast as we
Pull
can
into the
go.
engine, yeah. If we had 2 days for every day, I feel like we'd have like 6+ games out like in this time while doing all this other stuff.
Yeah,
But unfortunately,
and
we only have one day per day.
yeah, but we've also broadened a lot of we've broadened a lot of opportunities for folks in the games industry here in Ohio and the Midwest that hasn't existed. So even if we don't necessarily, I guess, directly benefit from a lot of the stuff that we do, there are tons of students and studios and others that are benefiting. So, maybe one day they'll create some really cool game, and then they'll come back and think kindly on us old folk that helped them along the way. But
Gotta keep tilling the soil and try to keep planting, and eventually
yep,
something will grow. Like
yep,
I think we've proven it can be done.
I think GDEX and the Shawnee XP and Sandbox ecosystems are providing a lot of value, and I would love to be able to get those into something where like that's the main thing that we focus on, and then maybe we can get back to actually making some of our own games. That would be nice.
That would be nice. Have the whole game production pathway set up for anyone to walk down, and we'll help support them, and then we'll just finally be adept at helping other people to that where we can help ourselves as well. We're
Yeah,
almost there. I feel like we are basically there. So this will be an interesting year, and everybody
I
should buy their GDEX tickets and get down here and talk to us.
yeah, sure,
We
yeah,
want to talk to you.
yeah. Buy your tickets. Come and check us out. I think the reality is I think we've actually been doing it. The teams coming out of the Shawnee XP Accelerator, several of them are getting publisher and investor deals, and like one of them is about to release their product later on this year, and we've gotten them in front of tons of people to showcase their game or whatever. So it's happening. It's a slow grind like everything else,
Because we had to we were missing certain checkboxes that we needed to check off that we only got recently, such as get actually burned by the AAA world directly. We've only ever been indirectly burned by them before. Now we've been directly burned by them,
Yeah,
so we can
yeah, that was
directly
fun.
relate to everybody. Yeah, we started our own thing because we were worried about getting burned by the AAA world. Now we've been burned by them, so now we know what it's
Yeah,
like directly.
Totally.
willing to help
And
other people not have that happen to them.
I'll say this
Uh,
too. I say this to folks. Like I always say I don't know shit about shit. I just say things. Uh, and obviously that's not true. I do know things, but I say as a joke, it's more of just like a humbling experience. It was like I'm constantly just trying to figure this all out, right? And all of us, we could have gone into the AAA space probably. You certainly could have with your skill sets, and you could have gone in the AAA space and started working in there. But we all chose to be like, what if we just tried to build this thing ourselves and see what we can do? And whenever you're the first into the breach, like you're the one taking the shots, right?
mhm.
And so we've had to learn and navigate, and like who could have predicted a global recession and who could have predicted a global pandemic, and like, just all these things that like really hurt our business. Um, but we keep trying, and it's like every day that we can survive, even if it's rough, even if we're just like chewing on a tomato in a corner, is a day that like we're learning things and we're able to like make new progress into this adventure. That's how I view it.
Doesn't kill you, makes you stronger.
Yeah, I guess.
Definitely have the endurance trait by now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's I hope people like I've seen just in my like searchings and like administration for GDEX, we've seen a lot of new studios like in the lists of studios that are out there registering themselves. So we might see a lot of fresh faces this year. That would be awesome. Just get more people. Again, when we're looking for like studios who maybe have never shown anything publicly, like that's the kind of really like that's what excites me the most about GDEX. If we can get a studio that's like, oh, we've just been hobbyist moonlighters over in Indiana or West Virginia or wherever nearby, because there are like a couple dozen like in the vicinity since like last year that have been cropping up. So I'm excited to reach out to them and just say, hey, are you if it's in the cards for you, we'd love to have you out here. Meet
Totally.
some new friends and fight that we're all fighting the same war together. uh,
Yeah.
Try
Yeah.
and
And
make our industry respectable.
I say this too, like, it's easy to get caught in the imposter syndrome and all that stuff, and that I think that's all totally fair, right? But what we have managed to do over the past since 2013, so over the past 12 years, 12 13 years, I think is pretty incredible. And we keep working with the same people year after year after year. Caleb, who's in chat, has helped be a volunteer and a volunteer lead, as well as a cog lead. And he's our mod in our incubator, our sandbox incubator Discord. But like all of these people could be doing anything else with their life, right? With their time. And they continually choose to come back and work with us. And I think that's very telling, and I think that means something. So I guess we're doing all right by folks. So all right, Tom. Any last thoughts before we wrap up? I know you got to get to class. We ran a little bit late.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, we gotta have a slightly short one today, folks, but we appreciate you watching. And no, I think this was nice, inspiring. It's always good to chat with you, and I think just kind of reground ourselves and where we've come, and it can feel like I don't know, it can feel like an insurmountable challenge sometime. But if you look at what we've already done, like it's reassuring. So I will keep fighting and reach out to folks and
Sweet.
yeah, see if we can get through the breach again once more.
Once more, yeah. All right, everybody. Well, that has been episode 68 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. Thomas, thank you for joining us. Of course, reminder about GDEX, www.thegdex.com. We've got our tickets for sale and all that. That's coming up in 85 days or so. Um, also, a reminder that we have got some really fun updates for GDEX coming up. So, follow us on social media. We're at the GDEX on virtually everything. So that's where we are. Also on Facebook. But other than that, yeah, this has been episode 68. So I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the chat, for the comments, and the good conversation. So on behalf of Baby, who's in my lap, Pumpkin, who's over there, our special guest, Tom, everybody in the chat and the community. I want to thank you, and we will see you next week.
Hey, folks.